Presidency has responded to Tuesday's planned National Day of Protest by 26 civil society organizations to call on the President, Muhammadu Buhari, to sign the Electoral Act Amendment Bill into law. It says it is a way to cool civil disorder and muddy the waters. In a statement, Presidential Media Advisor Femi Adesina accused the CSOs of being ignorant of constitutional requirements, which includes the fact that the President has a window of 30 days within which to sign the bill into law that is yet to be exhausted.
Right.
Well, for more on this, let's get in.
Bring him in, yeah.
Arise analyst, Dr. Sam Amadi. Dr. Sam, glad to have you join us. What Adesina says, the CSOs are ignorant of constitutional requirements based on this action. You would think that he's right.
I don't think they're ignorant. I mean, he's right. The president has still some window before he is precluded from exercising his right of assent or dissent. But I think the civil society people know this. I think they know that he has some days still left. There's some maybe contrived or real urgency in this case because INEC itself has expressed some concern about, the constitutional timeline for issuing out guidelines. And so the civil society point will be, look, we are closing down on,
well, Festus didn't say that. Festus clearly said that they are not hamstrung. They will work with the law.
The constitution is very clear what they can do, but they already have a guideline. But the communication was that, look, there are timelines. But that's not the issue. The issue here is civil society fancies the fact that there have been strong voice, build up to this act, and so part of a civic right of protest will be, I think the protest is engineered towards, say, maybe putting more pressure on the president to respond to in the way they want him. Now, the point is very clear. The president has the constitutional powers to assent. In fact, the design of the democratic process as a check and balance. The president has the right to not to assent to a law he doesn't like, and then the legislature has the right to override the president. So at the end of the day, the idea is that maybe in that process, a better version of a law will emerge. But then the question now is, I think there's a concern around will the president sign or not sign. And so this protest is one of those toolbox that the civil society has to put pressure. But of course, the president has to find a way to do what he thinks he should do as a president. That's why he's a president.
But now, then again, it looks like it will be a tough balancing act, between what the president likes to be in that electoral law and what really is in the, best interest of the nation. Well, you said that the president is within the law, still has some 30 days window according to the presidency. Yes, some days from the time, of course, the bill was sent to him. The president is saying that the civil society is just looking for an opportunity to muddy the waters and all of that. But why is it absolutely important for this electoral amendment law to be passed?
I think there are two versions, two contentions here. One is the sense people think that, look, this law, without this law, maybe we have too many gaps. We have very weak electoral system. I don't share that view, incidentally. I think that the existing electoral act is strong enough to undergate a credible election if INEC does a couple of things I've always said. One is that the INEC should see itself as a regulator and start a regulatory process for rulemaking. All those gaps, electronic transmission, beavers, can be provided validly by INEC rulemaking. That's due process rulemaking. So my view is that, look, yes, you need those laws for clarity or to end a side of caution, but the act and the constitution enables INEC to do the things they ought to do. The second perspective is that, look, because Nigerians are fond of enacting new electoral act almost every electoral cycle. If you watch since 2016, even before then, 2011, 2010, and so on and so forth, we have 2006, we have always had to remake this, and sometimes...
Is that even good?
It's not good, because sometimes it's not about how many days to file an appeal. These are things that even the Chief Justice of the Federation can issue guidelines. INEC can issue guidelines. So my view is that, look, what will make this election more credible is not just the Electoral Act new one, it's also the staffing of INEC. We've seen some replacements, and the people who are replacing them are not even persons who are alleged to be partisan. There are disputes around their partisan their affiliations and commitment. So you are not getting guarantee of competence, integrity. And so the focus around legalism, the new electoral law, obscures a more fundamental issue of the integrity quotient of the electoral management body itself. That's another issue to look at. Second issue is to also look at the judicial understanding. The jurisprudence is lagging behind. Some of the laws and some of the decisions made by the judiciary begs understanding. They kind of turn democracy upside down. So we need to be plugging and changing these areas and not get too fixed on a battle over Electoral Act, which in my view are not remedying much.
Yeah. What you're saying is it amounts to much ado about nothing.
Exactly, but then the point also is that, look, the notion, the National Assembly also makes errors by putting things that are controversial. For example, why should you have a bill, a provision that disqualifies people who are appointees? What's the logic of saying that appointees must resign before they go for primaries, when those appointees do not have greater political accountability than the elected person? So if a governor can run for election as governor, if a president and vice president, why should a minister who has less political accountability necessarily be disqualified? Yes. So I think that's a self-serving provision that kind of creates confusion. So these aides of president will not advise the president to sign off to a law that disables them, gives them a false choice. Either you resign or you don't run election.
Now you're touching the area of my next question. But the way you put this thing is quite interesting. The thing of if governors can contest for election, whether in office, who is an appointed president? He's not even elected. All right, well, why do you think the president is delaying signing this? And really, do you think the CSOs have any local standi to go on a protest while they know that the president, if he refuses to sign within 30 days, will get back to NAS and that they will veto it?
Okay, let's start with the first one. I think maybe the president would have signed this if not for that provision. Look, let's be very clear. This is politics contestation. The first time they came out with direct primary, mandating direct, which poses some political cost to president and some other people are going to run election. They didn't like that. They advised him against it. He said, look, if you remove this, I will sign. Now the error was that they removed it and added another political hot potato, which is that the president's men are now going to be seemingly forced out of government or forced out of. So my view is that, look, provision may have been part of why up to now the president is maybe thinking. Now the crisis is here. The president who talks about free and fair election, who says I'm going to leave a legacy, is now being pushed to say, look, you are not playing according to your promise. So the president is now facing two options. Either he signs off and bite this bullet that is not really this bitter pill, or he doesn't sign off and face a possible problem of credibility. Say, oh, the president says I was going to sign, and has not signed. And so it's a dilemma in a sense created by the disruptions and self-interested manner in which National Assembly packaged this bill. And again, back to the issue of what would the civil society, whether it's precipitate or the idea here is a very simple one: is that civil society does not owe the government comfort. Their job is to mount pressure and strict actions. Well, call it muddy, but strict action is for them a tool of leveraging against. They don't have the power of the purse. They don't have the military. What they have is the power of oration, the power of goodwill, the power of looking better, and of course mobilizing people. And the government sees the cost. It's going to be a huge cost if that protest goes on and the international community perceives that civic society is saying Mr. President is not keeping to his word. So maybe before it happens, who knows, they can sign the bill. They can sign the bill towards that possibility.
Thank you.